Okay, let's dive into this. We're going to explore how companies can unlock a ton of hidden value when they decide to sell off a piece of their business. And spoiler alert, it's way more strategic than just putting up a for sale sign.
So, let's start with a puzzle that I'm sure a lot of people have seen. You've got this great, profitable, successful business unit. But when it's time to sell, the offers that come in are just disappointingly low. So what's going on here? It's a super common problem, and the answer isn't really about the quality of the business itself. The real issue is something we can call the entanglement problem. See, the part of the business you're trying to sell isn't some standalone island. No, it's deeply woven into the parent company. We're talking finances, IT systems, HR processes. They're all commingled. And trying to untangle that knot, well, that's where the value just starts to vanish.
You know, to put it another way, think about trying to sell a single room in your house. It shares all the plumbing, the electricity, the hallways with everything else. A potential buyer doesn't just see a great room. They see the complicated, expensive job of separating it from the main building. And that, right there, is the seller's dilemma. And this table just lays out the fundamental conflict perfectly. The seller, of course, wants to get the most money possible and have a fast, clean exit. But the buyer, they're looking at it from a totally different angle. They see risk, they see a messy operational entanglement, and they see potentially huge separation costs. And all of that drives their offer price way, way down. So, how do you bridge that gap, between what you want as a seller and what the buyer fears? This is where the smart preparation comes in. Instead of just selling the business as is, you strategically prep it for sale. You address all those buyer concerns right up front, and that is how you unlock its true value. And this gets right to the heart of it. The highest price isn't won during the negotiation, not at all. It's created in the months of prep work before the deal is even announced. That's the real secret sauce. So let's look at 3 really powerful ways to do just that. Okay, strategy number 1, it's all about pace. In the world of M&A, time is literally money. The faster you can close the deal after it's announced, the faster the buyer can actually start getting value from their new purchase. And guess what? The more they're willing to pay for it. So, how do you actually speed things up? Well, here are 4 pretty clever shortcuts. First, instead of building brand new IT systems from scratch, you create a logical separation within the existing ones. It's kind of like putting up a digital wall. You can also securely share things like IT directories, which, trust me, saves months of complex migration work. Then you just focus on the most critical, high-impact rebranding up front. And finally, you strategically accept some minor, calculated risks to keep the whole process moving. Each one of these steps shaves precious time off the clock. All right, our second strategy is what we'll call the makeover. Think of it just like renovating a house before you sell it. A little investment in improving the business unit's curb appeal, both on the financial side and the operational side, can lead to a much, much higher selling price.
Now, before we go any further, let's just quickly define a key term, EBITDA. It's a core measure of profitability, and for buyers, it's one of the main numbers they use to figure out how much a business is actually worth. The higher the EBITDA, the higher the valuation. It's pretty much that simple.
So on the financial side, the goal is to make your costs predictable. Before the makeover, shared service costs are often this murky, confusing mess, and that makes buyers really nervous. But by analyzing those costs, capping them, and limiting any extra spending, you make the unit's profitability crystal clear. That transparency directly boosts the adjusted EBITDA, and, you guessed it, the final value. The operational makeover is just as important, though. Instead of just giving the buyer a clone of your old, tangled-up IT systems, you actually transform them. By moving to modern, cloud-based solutions, you're not just selling a business unit anymore. You're selling a sleek, efficient, standalone asset that's ready for the future. And that is infinitely more valuable. And that brings us to our final strategy, de-risking the deal. This is all about proactively solving the buyer's biggest headaches, especially that messy and frankly dreaded transition period right after the sale closes. This quote from a real-world case study just says it all. After a sale, buyers often have to rely on the seller for critical IT services for a while. This is handled through something called a transition service agreement, or a TSA. But buyers, they hate TSAs. They worry the service will be subpar, create security risks, and just become a massive distraction. It's a huge red flag for them. So what's the solution? Well, you bring in a third-party expert. By outsourcing the IT transition, you replace that risky TSA with a professional service. The seller is freed from the burden, and the buyer gets high-quality, reliable support from a company that does this stuff for a living. It's a brilliant way to de-risk the deal for everyone involved. Okay, so these three strategies, speed, makeover, and de-risking, they sound great in theory, right? But do they actually work in practice? Let's take a look at a quick case study of a Fortune 50 technology company that put them to the test. So this company had a fantastic business unit to sell, but they were facing all the classic problems we've been talking about. Buyers were driving the price down because of high separation costs, outdated IT systems, and that deep operational entanglement.
So what did they do? They didn't just pick one strategy. Nope, they launched a full-on transformation. They focused on speed, they gave the unit a complete financial and operational makeover, and they de-risked the transition by bringing in an outsourcer. They did the whole shebang.
And the results? Well, they were staggering. First off, they slashed the number of shared applications by 70%. I mean, that is a massive simplification, directly attacking that entanglement problem and making the business far, far easier for a buyer to integrate.
And second, the makeover resulted in a 30% drop in IT operational costs. That is a huge, tangible saving that flows directly to the bottom line, which of course significantly boosts that all-important EBITDA figure. So the crucial takeaway here is that this proactive work paid off big time. By addressing the buyer's fears head-on, the company was able to show them the true enhanced value of the business unit. And the result? They secured a much higher valuation and closed a very successful sale. So, what are the big takeaways here? First, remember that the sale price is determined long before the negotiation ever begins. It's won in the preparation. Second, the key is to stop thinking like a seller and start thinking like a buyer. Proactively solve their biggest fears. And finally, remember that pre-sale transformation isn't a cost, it's a direct investment in a higher selling price.
And that leaves us with a final thought to take away. You know, this isn't just about massive corporate deals. The principles of untangling complexity, improving efficiency, and thinking from another's perspective, well, that can unlock value everywhere. So the question is, what hidden value is waiting to be unlocked in your own work?